Welcome to episode 60 of Meet the GIMP. My name is Rolf Steinert and I'm recording this in Bremen, northern Germany. Well, it's already episode 60. Unbelievable. This show is a bit plugged together because I hadn't had enough time to really prepare it. I had some snippets in the cooler and, well, they are thawing now and I'll show them to you. But first, let's talk about a little bit about setting GIMP up for displaying images. You see here, this is a GIMP window, and it's not very representative. And let me just pull this down that you can see the menu. See here, we are in GIMP. And first I say here, View and Show Layer Boundary. I unselect this. And you see here, this nasty line around is gone. This one here. So, this. And then this gray here is, it's good for checking an image, but for working, medium gray is great as a background for working with photography on it, but for presenting this image while rambling to it, it's not the right image, the right color. So I go to View and here Padding Color. And here I select Custom Color, get the standard dialog for selecting a color and select black. Okay. And now I pull this window up again. And now we have here, except for the bottom, just fix this in a second. Okay, now we have a representative frame for this image. What's in for you this week? First, I have a little bit about the zone system, the principle behind it, and this image plays a little role in it. Then I have something from Jim. You know, there are at least 67 different ways to solve a given problem in GIMP. And, well, Jim thought about how to choose the way, how to find a way in this mess of different options that you have. And then finally, I'll tackle this image here again and the technique that Jim used. And this is the reason why. The image looked this way, with a nasty fall off to the left side, because, of course, this wasn't reality, as you will see in a moment. So, this is the plan for tonight, and let's start with the zone system. Before I go into the details of the zone system, let me state some stuff that is really clear if you have thought about it, but you have to think about it. And I'll try to do this now here. First, there is reality. Let's say a swan on water at sunset. And then there is the final image that I want to make from it. This image has a bit to do with reality, but this wasn't what I saw there. But this was what I wanted you to see. And in between is an image in the camera, this here. This also is not the stuff that I saw, and it's not the stuff that I wanted to get, but it's properly exposed. It has all the information that is needed. In this situation, I relied on the matrix metering, but I'll come to metering in a moment. And it's, well, I said it's properly exposed, but that's not true. If I zoom in into the head of the swan, then you'll see that the black is too dark. So this image is basically underexposed. But that's only an example here. So this is our start, and we want to go from here to here. But we have to go from here, from reality to an image in the camera, and then from this image to our final goal here. So we have to do two steps. This here is exposure. The better you get this step, the easier the next is here. And this is post-processing. So everything that we are talking about in zone system, and basically in every talk about the technical aspects of photography, is how do we go from reality to our final image, and how do we do it with the camera, and how do we do it in post-processing. It's not important if it's done with chemicals or in a computer. The zone system makes a link between the goal and the way to it. Let's start with exposure. If you read something about exposure, you'll normally read about metering, methods of metering, and so on. You'll rarely see something about the final image in it. Ansel Adams took a different road. His zone system is about the final image. It starts here at the final image and then walks back from there through standardized post-processing, which you can have in mind, which you have in mind when you are setting up your shoot, and then the exposure. So Adams has a recipe which guarantees you, if you want this result here, you'll get it the easiest way or the sure way if you follow his advice. Working with a zone system forces you to think about your final image first. You have to say, I want to have the swan in zone 2 or in zone 3. I want to have, well, it's really black with a little bit of detail in it, or I want to have structure in it. That would be the difference between zone 2 and 3. You can also say, I want to have the swan in zone 5, and then it will be medium, like here. This, I think, is about the middle zone, zone 5. So this is a recipe where you can determine your exposure from the stuff you want to achieve. And I'll cover the steps that are necessary for that in digital photography. I have learned about the zone system more than 30 years ago and seen it in use with a view camera. I haven't really thought about it in the decades in between, but I'll try to use it from now on and take you with me on the road to that goal, to achieve full control about exposure with this zone system. You've just seen in this little slideshow this image here, which is the original of the image that I showed you at the beginning of the show. Original, well, it's made with a RAW converter with Bibble Pro without any settings, with all the basic settings in it. And from this I got in the RAW converter this here. And then I made in GIMP this one here with a little bit of curves, I think, and I changed the hue also a bit. I can't really recall what I did. Sorry, I made no recording of that. And then I noticed that this image here has a nasty fall off to the left side. How to correct that? Well, that will be part 3 of the show, but let's first look at Jim's solution for a similar problem. I got a very insightful email from Jim. Oh, by the way, I thought about how to attribute your contributions to Meet the GIMP, and I think I'll just keep it at first names, and if you want to show your nose to be fully disclosed, just put a comment in the show blog. This is a question of balance between privacy and recognition for the work you've done. So let's stay simply with Jim. And Jim has written me a long email about a concept, how to approach things you do with GIMP. He seems to think in the same lines as I can't think in math. I can't think in well, just these formulas, and so I am a hands-on guy. I have to imagine something doing physically, and there is nothing physically here. Everything is done with, well, with numbers. And to overcome this, to have a workflow in your head, or better said, to have a workflow in my head and in Jim's head, we both have to think about stuff we would do with physical things. That's for one reason why I'm not happy with this powerful tool Unsharp Mask. I have no you know, you can reduce local contrast or enhance local contrast with that without ruining the overall image. Just look for show 22 that was covered, and you can sharpen images and so on. But it's a very abstract concept, and well, I have to force myself to look into that and to work with that. And I'll take this image here, sent me by Jim, with his example how to do this, to show you how this physical imagination, or how do you call it, works. So let's look at this image and use a technique that I've used before but have been reminded now by reading the book from Vincent Versace I told you about last show, Welcome to Oz. I can recommend it even more than last time. Let's just make some annotations. What's the problem with this image here? It's a reproduction of a painting, I think, and there are some obvious problems. First one, it's the perspective is not right. So we should make a perspective correction. So this here. These are the problems. We can get rid of the border at the same time. The next problem is this should be white. He was there and he knows the frame around here, the passepartout, is white. And we have here a problem with a flash. The same problem is here with the flash. And we have another problem here, and that is here, this reflection. Jim has covered the white part here. This, you see, the white isn't white, and it's even whiter here than here. And he thought about a way by putting a layer on top of it. Let me look. Let's make this layer normal before it. He just said, okay, if I put the same effect, if I put a layer on top of this, which emulates this gradient here, that's a gradient from top to down, light to dark. If I put that on top, here and set the layer mode to divide, then this effect will cancel itself out. Let's try this. Okay, looks way better. I haven't seen the original here, but the colors are now popping out more. Perhaps a bit too bluish, I don't know. Here the face is perhaps a little bit too purple, but we can reduce the effect a bit to correct that, or we can work with that later. But the principle, I think, is clear. Just make a layer like this one here and put it on divide and cancel it out. Jim hasn't written me how he came to his layer. I would do it this way. Select the color dialog, just pick the color, and I would take one from here, from the top. This is my foreground. Go to the background, click the color selector, and take one from here. I think this is the average here. Now I have your foreground to background. Then I would go to the blend tool and select a gradient, and the gradient foreground to background. Here we have it, and I think it should be RGB. I'm not sure, but well, yes, it should be RGB. Set the opacity to 100%. Make a new layer. Go back to the tool options and check in which direction the tools work. It starts with white on the brighter side and goes down to the darker side. And now I just click here where I had taken the sample, go down where I had taken the second sample, and just release the mouse or lift my pen. And now you see here I have this gradient. I set this to divide mode, and here we are. So by just making a layer that has the same properties as the fault in this image, and then setting it to a mathematical operation that cancelled itself out, is the tool for getting this here right. Of course, Jim could have simply corrected the perspective and then cut away the white stuff around it and put it on a new frame, on a new white background. But then this fault would be still in the image. And this way that he described, well, it corrects not only the frame, which is not that important, but it corrects the colors in the image. And now, let's see what can be done to this image here to correct this fall off. How I came from this to this is just in a moment after this part here. I just noticed here is a nasty fall off in the light to this border here, and I want to correct that. The easiest thing would be to put a gradient over it, a black and white gradient, which would then just lighten this a bit up. And for making this gradient, of course, I'll use GIMP. So I double this layer, and the first thing I do now is I desaturate the layer. And as this is no black and white conversion or so, I simply desaturate it. Now I have to get rid of all this ripples in here, and therefore I use filters, blur, Gaussian blur. Here is my preview. And now I just blur this out. The swan here is a bit in the way, but he will vanish in a moment. I just take again the Levels tool, and now I set the white point of this whole thing to here. And now I can just take my selection tool and just fill this whole thing with white. And now I have a gradient here that gives me, I hope I've done it right here. This wasn't that good because here still is a border visible. So again, curves tool, levels tool, white point, click, and OK. And now I set simply the layer mode to divide. And you see the fall off has vanished. And I can control the amount with the slider. Why does this work? Well, the manual at docs.gimp.org tells that divide multiplies each pixel value in the lower layer by 256 and then divides that by the pixel value in the upper layer plus 1. In the greatest part of the image, where the top layer is white, each pixel is multiplied by 256 and then divided by 256, which does exactly nothing. But here, where the top layer gets a bit darker, the pixels are multiplied by 256 and then divided by, let's say, 250, and so they get a little bit brighter. You can control the effect here with the slider, and just look for that effect that you want to have. I'll fine-tune this later on when I can have a little bit larger screen here. It's sometimes it's funny. I do image editing in a window here that is about the size of my EE PC in front of a 21-inch monitor. So let me recap this. If you want to remove a dark gradient or a vignette in an image, you just double the layer, you desaturate that layer, and then you blur it until you have lost every detail in it. You fill the parts that are not changing with white, and then set the white point so that the border between the set white and your rest of the image vanishes. And then you set the layer mode to divide and adjust the effect with the opacity slider. Here again is the correction with this layer in divide mode. And I can adjust the effect here, and I think it's well with 100%. And then I just made a copy of this with copy visible and pasted that into the image. And I set this layer here. I set this layer to burn mode, and burn mode intensifies the colors. I didn't know which effect I wanted to achieve. I just played around with it and found this burn mode to be the best fitted for what I wanted to be this image like. And so it's finished. This here is just a copy, again copy visible, because if I change something here I have this copy. I tried some different ways to do this, but deleted them. And I think this was it for this week. You'll find this image and Jim's image in the archive, which you can reach via the blog at meetthegimp.org. And I'm happy about comments. Please write to info@meetthegimp.org if you want to mail me, or write into the blog a comment into the blog. And if you have a blog yourself, I would be happy if you mention me from time to time. After about half a year, these blog entries are not so important for the search engines anymore, and well, I want to be important in the search engines. And then I want to say thank you for all the people who have given money for Meet the GIMP. I'm now well into the next year with financing the server, and so just today I got $50 via PayPal, and thank you very much. And with that, I say goodbye, up to next week.
photocastnetwork.com, your photography resource in the potosphere. photocastnetwork.com